Boy, I'll tell you, under the category of you have to be absolutely kidding me, did you see what Gavin Newsom did yesterday? Obviously, it's the next chapter in I want to posture myself as more moderate as I appeal on the national stage in running for president, while at the same time, I want to govern as a liberal at home, embracing far left extreme policies. So yesterday, after President Trump issued a post excoriating California, excoriating Newsom and the CIF for allowing biological men to participate in women's competitive sports, all of a sudden the CIF yesterday came out with a new policy that is bonkers dumb, and then Gavin Newsom embraces the policy. I think it's important to mention exactly what Gavin Newsom had to say on this subject. So I'm going to quote now Izzy Garden, who's a spokesperson for the governor, from yesterday, saying, "Pilot is a reasonable, respectful way to navigate a complex issue without compromising competitive fairness, a model worth pursuing. The governor is encouraged by this thoughtful approach." That's literally what Gavin Newsom has to say about this policy that allows biological men to still continue to compete against women in competitive sport. Let me tell you more. The idea that CIF came up with, so let me start by saying that the status quo right now, based on a 2013 law that was passed in California, is that biological men can participate in women's sports if they decide that they are, identifying as a woman. So there's no actual biological change or anything. All of a sudden, they just declare that they're a different sex than they were born, with this weird idea of separating your gender from your sex, which is, again, strange left-wing stuff, which again is strange, social engineering on the part of the left. So you have this situation where in event after event, it's not limited to California, but just last week in California, we had Katie McGinnis, who came in second for her jump event. It was a Southern California competition. She came in second to transgender, and of course has all of the physical traits of being a man, stronger, bigger, all of those things that give you a tremendous advantage in competitive sports. It's why, in fact, there are women's sports versus men's sports. Anyways, the CIF proposal is weird. It says that when you're competing and going through your competitions to get to the finals, if in the top three a biological man makes the top three, then if the fourth place person is a woman, she gets to go into the finals anyway. But that man is now still competing in the finals. And so the CIF change doesn't do anything about the fundamental unfairness that's going on, which is that it's not fair for someone who's born a man to compete in the same events with someone who's born a woman, regardless of how they want to self-identify themselves or what they want to call themselves. Their biology is their biology, and they can't really change it. So I would just say, Gavin Newsom thinks we're all stupid. Gavin Newsom thinks that we're all falling for this. Gavin Newsom somehow thinks that the swing voters around America that helped decide Donald Trump's presidency over that of Kamala Harris, he somehow thinks that all of those people will think that he's making sense. This is a pattern with Gavin Newsom. He does this over and over again. Pick out of a hat, my favorite recent example would be when he made an announcement that because of budget cuts in California, he was going to cut funding for healthcare through Medicaid for illegal aliens in California. And in fact, the media, which often helps Gavin Newsom with his strategy this way, actually went ahead and posted that. They put in their media headlines that that's exactly what he was doing. But that's not what he did. What Newsom actually did was he said, after the end of this year, no new illegal aliens can sign up for the free healthcare. So everyone that already has, which now is a $9.3 billion expenditure for California, all of those people are in and stay in. And then he says that like in a year and a half from now, everyone that's in may have like a copay or a small amount of money that they would pay towards a much bigger piece of the pie. Again, he says something that sounds moderate, but then the actions are actually extremely progressive left. So this is another example. And the biggest tragedy right now, he creates all this hope for these young female athletes and then dashes them. I mean, he even went on his own podcast that he created, had Charlie Kirk on as his first guest, and then admitted to Charlie Kirk that the policy that exists is unfair. But there were actually two pieces of legislation going through the legislature at that time that were designed to undo the policy, and Newsom didn't support either of them. Again, same thing. He's posturing for president, speaking rhetorically more reasonable and moderate, but then when it comes to the actual proof, the actual doing of something more moderate, he just doesn't do it. I don't know how long he thinks he can get away with it. He thinks it's too cute by half, or he just thinks we're all stupid. I like to end all of my videos by asking the same question. So, does it matter? And the answer is, of course it matters, because Gavin Newsom wants to run for president. Gavin Newsom is running our state into the ground with his progressive policies. And it matters most of all to all of these women who have worked years of their lives training, conditioning, and getting ready for that big moment to compete for awards and win accolades as being the best female athletes in their fields. And despite what Gavin Newsom says about unfairness, the reality is he's perfectly fine with somebody who is a biological man who wants to identify as a woman, jumping into these competitions, making them unfair and taking gold medals. That's what happened to Katie McGinnis just recently, and it's going to continue to happen. And look no further for the culprit than Gavin Newsom, who is facilitating this when he could do something about it and change the policy. That's what I got.